is to learn. So there's machlekes between the Gra and the Baal Tanya, whether the mitzvah of Talmud Torah is a mitzvah that requires verbalization. Do you need a maisa to move your lips to say something, or even thinking is enough to be kind of the mitzvah of Talmud Torah? So the Vilna Gaon held thinking is enough. So according to Vilna Gaon, even thinking and learning would require Birchas Torah. Thinking and learning is fulfilling the mitzvah of Talmud Torah. It's thought is enough. If you verbalize it, so the Gemara says, Ma'ila is that if a person verbalizes what they learn, it helps one remember. There's different things, but the mitzvah of Talmud Torah is fulfilled by thinking. The Baal Tanya held now like that. The Baal Tanya held that the mitzvah of Talmud Torah requires a ma'isa, requires some sort of act. It's considered, akimas vasav, to move one's lips. So Baal Tanya, that's what the Baal Tanya held. Now, Aleph, the Vilna Gaon. The Vilna Gaon, everyone's a maskim is a Talmud Chacham. You definitely rely on the Vilna Gaon. Number two, even within the world of the Baal Tanya, so the Baal Tanya himself references this, and future Rebbes brought it out more, is that even within Talmud Torah, the Baal Tanya would agree that there are certain sugyas or certain ideas in learning that it requires more contemplative thought. So, for example, there are some people, myself included, my nature is that I'm talking right now out loud, so that's not disturbing to me. But if I'm sitting and learning by myself, if I move my lips and I say the words, I distract myself. I don't think as well if I'm moving my lips. I'll think better and I'll understand what I'm learning better if I'm just thinking without moving, without saying it out loud. So then even the Baal Tanya would agree that's the mitzvah Talmud Torah. The mitzvah Talmud Torah is to learn, the ikar is to be able to understand what you're learning. If you're able to do that while also verbalizing, it's gewaldig. If you can't do it while you're verbalizing, then the ikar is to be able to understand. That's number two. Second of all, even within the Baal Tanya, if I'm listening to someone else talk and learning, then obviously what the Baal Tanya would require that the person's giving a shir and I'm like, mimicking and copying his words like every single second. It's ridiculous. So clearly the Baal Tanya would agree that this is only true. Again, it's all within the context of being able to learn, once you're learning, you can understand properly to articulate. So if I could understand better by just thinking, then just think. If I'm able to listen to a shir and that's how I'm able to understand the sugya, then that's the way you do it. If I'm listening to something and I'm also trying to copy every word, I'm not going to concentrate myself, and that's ridiculous. By listening to someone talk, it's also good talking.
On the Baal Tanya. I think we need some more understanding about Tanya, because if I just open the Gemara and just read the words, I'm not really learning anything. Learning is intellectual.
Right. So why do you have to do a ma'isa? Okay, so it's like this.
Time out before we get into that. What about something that's not a live share?
Right. So if it's not a live share, right. So if it's recorded, so again, in that case, then in order to fulfill the mitzvah of Talmud Torah according to the Baal Tanya, then it would have to be in a situation where verbalizing is going to be distracting and it's going to take you away from listening, which I think it probably very often is. Then the Baal Tanya would concede that the mitzvah of Talmud Torah primarily is to be able to understand. And if talking and if verbalizing gets in the way of your understanding, then obviously, then the mitzvah Talmud Torah in that particular situation requires just thinking.
But what about driving, right? I mean, essentially that gets in the way a little bit of your understanding. So it's a lesser quality limud Torah?
No, that's what the Talmud Torah is being required of at that point. So this is where it gets to the crux of it. And this is an important point. In Chazal we have a lashon. We even say it in davening. Torah mitzvahs, right? That's people talk. Yiddishkeit's Torah mitzvahs. Doesn't make any sense. What do you mean Torah and mitzvahs? Learning Torah is one of the mitzvahs. Where is this idea that, for example, a few weeks ago we had Parshas B'chukosai, right? So it says in B'chukosai Telechu, if you walk in my statutes, that's v'tzmaisai tishmeru, and you keep my mitzvahs, you get good things. So Chazal already asked the question: if it says v'tzmaisai tishmeru to keep my mitzvahs, then what does it mean in b'chukosai telechu? Go in my chukim. It's the same. So Chazal say in b'chukosai telechu means shetiyu amein b'tar, that you should be able to, that you should dedicate yourself to learn with Mesiras Nefesh. But weiter, that's one of the mitzvahs. So it's included in the mitzvahs. So what do you mean that you should do mitzvahs with Mesiras Nefesh? You should be Mesiras Nefesh for Shabbos too. Clearly, what we're seeing over here in the language of Torah mitzvahs and is that there are, and this is the most important point, which is that there are two aspects of Talmud Torah. There's an aspect of Talmud Torah that it's one of the 613, and as one of the 613, so it's machlokes between the Gra and the Baal Tanya how you fulfill that mitzvah of Talmud Torah, because the 613 mitzvahs, if you think about them, there's one thing that the unifying concept behind all the 613 is that they're related to the body. They're related to physically one's body, either doing things or not doing something, or even spiritually. 613 is a magic number. 613 is a number that corresponds to the human body. We have 248 limbs, 365 sinews, corresponding to 248 positive mitzvahs, 365 negative mitzvahs, equaling 613. Which means that the fundamental purpose of every mitzvah is to uplift a certain aspect of your humanity. So therefore, in the world of mitzvahs, so the question is, what is the mitzvah Talmud Torah in mitzvahs? Is it more of is it connecting more to the intellectual, just the intellect, or is it the intellect plus a physical act? But that's all within Talmud Torah as it exists within the spectrum of the 613. But then there's something else. Talmud Torah also exists as outside of that system. It exists outside of that system. There's the 613, that's mitzvahs, and Torah is one of them. But then Torah also exists on its own. How do you understand that? And in that way of Torah existing sort of in its independent universe called Torah outside of mitzvahs, then there's no machlokes between the Baal Tanya and the Gra in that way. That's certainly fulfilled by thinking and learning as well. The Gisa Bayom V'Layla, to contemplate Torah learning day and night. That's not because of one of the 613. That's Torah as exists in its own entity. What do I mean by this? So let me try to explain. There are things that, there are indicators of life. Like, how do I know if someone's alive? So in halacha, for example, there's halachas about this, right? Let's say there's a wall that a building collapses or whatever, God forbid, something like that, and it's on Shabbos. It's obviously to save a life, you have to be mechal Shabbos. But how do I know if the person's alive to be mechal Shabbos on him? So in halacha, there's indicators. If I see breathing, right? If there's a pulse, or if medical science is more, more accurate ways to pinpoint whether a person's alive. So there are certain signs, there are certain indicators of life, and there are certain experiences which are the result of being alive. So I move my hand because I'm alive, right? And you could figure out that I'm alive if I move my hand. And so I'm able to breathe as a result of me being alive, and that'll indicate to you whether I'm alive or not if I'm breathing. But is that life? Like what's life itself? Like the actual essence of life itself is two separate. There's life itself, and then there are the ripple effects of being alive, right? So, for example, like in the neshama, so you have your body, right? So Adam is sitting there, is just on the floor, right? And then the neshama comes into the body. So we're a bunch of idiots. Not you, I'm saying I'm an idiot. So I think of what's a neshama, this like floating globe of light that just like whoop, goes into, it's like a battery, and now all of a sudden you have to understand that just as there's many different parts of the body, so you have your eyes and you have your ears, and you see from your eyes and you hear from your ears, right? Why don't you hear from your eyes? Why don't you see from your ears? Well, that's a ridiculous question, right? Because your eyes are made. I mean, the mechanics, the structure of your eyeballs is that it's connected to vision. And the structure of the ears is connected to hearing. It's like, that's just the way it's made. So just as the body has 613 limbs, and every limb has its own identity and its own individual purpose and nature and quality and and a way of being active. So the neshama also has 613 body parts. There's the eyes of the neshama and there's the ears of the neshama. It's not this this glow, this glowing orb that's in your chest or something. There's an entire form of the neshama, just like you have a neshama. Your body has your neshama has a body to it as well. And when the eyes of your neshama enter into your physical eyes, you're able to see. And when the ears of your neshama enter into your ears, you're able to hear. But all of that are also just derivatives of something more essential. Then there's the essence of your neshama. In Chassidus, it's called the essence of one's neshama, the actual life force of the soul itself. That's called yichida, the singularity, where all that energy is coming from. There are three parts. There's your physical body, then there's the body of your neshama as it enters into your body, but then there's the yichida, then there's the essence of your soul, the actual essence of your soul itself, which is the life force itself. That life force itself is then emanating and creating a spiritual structure called the spiritual body, which then enters your physical body. But there are these three different layers. There's your physical body, there's your spiritual body that sort of enlivens your physical body, but then there's the essence of the soul itself. The essence of the soul itself doesn't have different parts to it. It's called yichid, it's called a singularity. Just like life force itself. Life itself is something that's indivisible, it's indivisible, it's indifferentiable. When life force then enters your body and then it makes its way to your eyes and it makes its way to your toes, so eyes do different things than toes. But in its essence, it's a singularity. The Rebbeinu Shalom made the world in such a way where Hashem Kiviyachol is the soul of the world. We say in Tehillim, Barchi Nafshi, Hashem. Chazal say that just like there's a soul to the body, so Hashem is the soul of the universe. The purpose of Torah and mitzvahs is to take this physical world, us included, and to enliven it, to bring the neshama into this body, bring God into this place. But just like when it comes to neshama, there are two parts. There's the body of the neshama, fitting each piece of that body fitting into the different parts of your physical body. There's the eyes of the soul that enters into your eyes, and there's the ears of your soul that enter into your ears. But then there's the essence of the soul that's behind the scenes of all of that. And all those different parts of the soul, the body of the soul, are sort of emanating from that essence. So totally it is with God himself, Kiviyachol. There's a part of God that fits into different aspects of the world. But then there's the essence. Torah and mitzvahs correspond to these two parts. Mitzvahs are there for what? To bring the different parts of your soul, the soul of your body into your physical body. So there are mitzvahs that are connected every single, again, 613 mitzvahs correspond to 613 parts of your body. So there's one mitzvah that's connected to the eyes, for example, and that the purpose of that mitzvah is to bring the eyes of your soul into the eyes of your body. And there's a mitzvah that's connected to your left hand, and the purpose of that mitzvah is to bring the left hand of your soul into the left hand of your body. But then there's something else which is about connecting to the essence of that soul. That from there comes all these different parts. And that essence, that's Torah. When you talk about Torah and mitzvahs, so Torah is one of the 613, but it also exists independently. Because the existence of Torah is that it's God himself. It's the essence of the soul itself. From there emanates the eyes of the soul and the ears of the soul. That's what happened by Har Sinai, by the way. We just got from Shavuos. What happened on Har Sinai was not that Hashem Yisbarach gave us, we had a bunch of mitzvahs before. We had 7 mitzvahs from Adam Rishon, ready from Noach, right? And even before that, we were given mitzvah Shabbos. There's a few other mitzvahs in the place of Mara. And so Har Sinai comes and fills in the gaps. That's not what Har Sinai was. Har Sinai was the Rebbeinu Shalom gave us Torah mitzvahs. The Rebbeinu Shalom didn't just give us the rest of the 613, because if you just have all the different parts of the body and all the different parts of the soul body as well, but the essence is not there, then it's only a matter of time until things fall apart. The Chiddush of Har Sinai is the Rebbeinu Shalom gave us the essence of our souls and the essence of God himself, Kiviyachol, and that's Torah and mitzvahs. That's why what happened by Har Sinai is the Chol Amroyim Esakailas. They saw the sounds. What's usually heard, they saw. What's usually seen, they heard. That was one of the miracles of Har Sinai. Let me ask you a question. Why would God do that? Just to show off? Like, what's the point of that miracle? The answer is, it wasn't like Hashem was doing Har Sinai. He's like, you know what, this will be a nice trick. In my Rolodex of cool stuff, this is one of the things that's a reflection of what was happening by Har Sinai. What was happening by Har Sinai is the Rebbeinu Shalom was not just giving us the soul of the world in terms of like the eyes and the ears and the nose, because when it comes to the eyes has its own mission. Ears has its own identity, and they're all divided up into different parts, and they can't cross over. But from the essence that it's all coming from, it's all the same. It's all one. The miracle of Royim Es HaKolos, of seeing the sounds and so on, is coming from the fact that God gave us the essence of Yiddishkeit and the essence of Himself, and that's Torah and mitzvahs. So let's going back to the Baal Tanya that you had. I mean, listen, I'm sorry, this turned into a whole thing, but back to that question, the whole discussion, this is the most important point. The whole discussion between the Gemara and the Baal Tanya, is the mitzvah Talmud Torah with Dibur, is it not with Dibur? So then and then we said that first of all the Gemara says it's without Dibur, but even in the Baal Tanya, if it's going to take away, the Ikar is understanding, and his speaking is going to take away from that, then certainly the mitzvah is just to think. And if you're hearing from a live person, then it's as if you're speaking as well. But all of that is in the context of the mitzvah Talmud Torah. But the essence, but then there's learning, because it's connecting you to the essence of Yiddishkeit and the essence of God. And from there emanates energy to all the 613. In terms of the essence, then that discussion is irrelevant. It's not a question of Dibur or not Dibur. Dibur is only an issue when you're dealing with the mitzvahs, and Talmud Torah is one of the mitzvahs. But when it comes to Torah as it exists separate from mitzvahs, then it doesn't. Then everyone agrees it doesn't require speaking. So that's. So you shouldn't have any Chalisha Zadas from that shir that you heard, or whatever it is. Not anymore. No, for sure.
Maybe Rebbe just answered the question we had about why Shavuos is celebrated in Sivan instead of Yom Kippur, because it's when we got the non-mitzvah variety.
The non-mitzvah variety, exactly. It's there's a difference between being given all the reverberations of life, but then actually being able to have life itself. We in technology it's like this also. Technology at this point is very good at creating, at mimicking consciousness or mimicking life, but it's still not consciousness. It's still not life itself. Those are two separate things. So there's two separate things. We could appreciate that as modern people. We could appreciate that there's two separate things. There's the derivative of life. There's the ripple effects that come from life, but then there's life itself, there's consciousness itself, and those are two separate things. Mitzvahs, that's why, for men in particular, without learning, it's only a matter of time until one's mitzvahs begin to deteriorate. Because when there's just the derivatives of life, without life itself, those derivatives, it's only a matter of time until they begin to fall apart. But when you have the essence behind it, then it's a constant, it's self-sustaining, it's a self-sustaining circuit, it keeps on moving on its own. The Rebbeinu Shalom gave us Torah and mitzvahs. Mitzvahs by themselves are the derivatives, they're the channels that flow from that river that's called Torah. Now, again, and one of those channels is Talmud Torah as a mitzvah. But there's Talmud Torah that exists as a core essence. And that core essence, that river itself that all these channels are flowing from, that's called Torah. And now the question is, so how do you know whether you're learning Torah just as one of the 613, as just one of the 613 channels coming from that river, or are you learning as far as that river is concerned? So that's what Chazal are saying, that when Torah is learned with Mesiras Nefesh, with self-sacrifice, that's a Torah that's getting to the essence. That's a Torah that's connecting you to the essence of God and the essence of your soul, as opposed to the light of God or the light of your soul. Because what does self-sacrifice mean? So it means for different people different things, right? For some people it means forcing yourself to stay up at night when you're tired and to open up a sefer. For some people, it means sitting here right now right? And just, without making a U-shaped hole in the wall, So that, for other people, it's doing daf yomi. Whatever Mesiras Nefesh means. Mesiras Nefesh is always one of those things that gets to the kishkas of who you are, because when you're holding by just the channels, just the derivatives, the ripple effects of life, mimicking life, that just you're sort of going through the motions. But when you want to know when are the moments that I'm truly embracing my life, not just things that show that I'm alive or symptoms of life. When are the moments that I'm truly alive? Those are moments of Mesiras Nefesh. Those are moments when I'm pushing myself beyond what I think my limits are. When you're learning with Mesiras Nefesh, that's called Talmud Torah. That's beyond the 613. That's called Torah and mitzvahs. And that's the difference. When Torah is learned without self-sacrifice, so then it's a Torah that's one of the 613, which is beautiful. And then you get in the world of the Vilna Gaon and the Baal Tanya, and you have to work it through. But when you're sitting listening to a shir, and it's a night, and you're exhausted, but you're doing it anyway, so that's called learning with Mesiras Nefesh. That's not part of the 613 spectrum. It's way beyond that. It's the root that everything is emanating from. It's a Har Sinai moment. That Har Sinai moment, which literally took place with Mesiras Nefesh, right? The Jews died and were brought back to life every single time Hashem said something on Har Sinai. Because what was being given on Har Sinai was not just the channels, was the river that it was all emanating from was being given to us. What was given to us in Har Sinai was not just an opportunity to connect to the offshoots of our souls, but what was given to us is the opportunity to connect to the essence of ourselves. And the way to do that is by connecting oneself to Yiddishkeit with Mesiras Nefesh. That's why Mesiras Nefesh is such a big deal. Self-sacrifice is a huge deal, because self-sacrifice is not just a nice mila in your avodas Hashem. It changes the whole category of what you're trying to connect to. If you're trying to connect to the offshoots of who you are, you don't need self-sacrifice for that. But if you're trying to connect to the essence of who you are and the essence of who God is and the essence of Yiddishkeit, the Yechida, that requires Mesiras Nefesh. And when that Yechida, when that essence of who you are is allowed out, then nothing can stand in its way. See, when it comes to the 613, so there could be things that stand in its way, because any particular mitzvah is not the strongest thing in the universe. So you could have minias, you could have things blocking it. A particular channel could be blocked, but you're not going to stop the river. The river itself can't be stopped. The offshoots of the river can be stopped. The river itself can't be stopped. That's why that even in halacha you find this, that there are three averos that a person is supposed to die for, right? Gil Reis, Avodah Zarah, and Shvichas Damim. But then you have other things in Chazal, for example, like Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva is one of the greatest martyrs of all time, right? When you think about people died al Kiddush Hashem, the number one, the Rebbe of all Rebbes of Bali Mesiras Nefesh is Rabbi Akiva. What did he die for? It wasn't Avodah Zarah. It wasn't Gil Reis. It wasn't Shvichas Damim. It was Talmud Torah, but not even Talmud Torah Barabim. The Romans said you could learn, but don't teach Torah Barabim. And famously, Rabbi Akiva said about himself when he was imprisoned, or when he was teaching Torah Barabim, and so someone said to me, Rebbe, you're gonna get caught. You can't do such a thing. So what did Rabbi Akiva say? The famous story that there was once a fish that's swimming down the river, right? And the fox says to the fish, what's going on? He says, fish, I'm trying to run away. There's a fisherman trying to catch me. And the fox says, so come to the shore. He's not going to catch you. The nets are in the river. Come to the shore. And the fish says, they say about you that you're clever. You're a big shaita. At least if I'm in the river, so maybe I'll die, but maybe I'll survive. If I go onto the shore, I'm for sure dead. So said Rabbi Akiva, listen, if I stop learning, if I stop teaching the Barabim, I'm mamish dead. So if I continue teaching, maybe I'll get caught, maybe I won't. But if I stop, I'm for sure dead. What are you talking about, Rabbi Akiva? Teach Torah, make a little, do it on Zoom. I don't know, Barabim. Why is that called not? First of all, it's not one of the Gimel Veres Chamuras. Okay, so you want to tell me that the Romans, it was a Shas Hashmad. Okay, fine. But there's an easy way to avoid Shas Hashmad. It's an easy way to avoid it. Just teach Torah in public. The answer is Rabbi Akiva wasn't being Meiser Nefesh because of the 613. Within the world of 613, there are rules and regulations. Not every single one requires to sacrifice your whole life. Only three out of the 613 require that. But Rabbi Akiva was being Meiser Nefesh because of Torah, you understand? Not because of Torah versus mitzvahs. Rabbi Kiva saw the Romans attacking the essence of Yiddishkeit, the Mesiras Nefesh, the Har Sinai. If you take and that's not up for the question whether is it one of the three or not. That's everything. That's Keim Chayenu. That's the essence. That's Torah with Mesiras Nefesh. That's why the Baal Tanya said that if a person is struggling with a nisayon, it's good, he said, to imagine being put in a situation of having to sacrifice your life for Yiddishkeit. He said, because when you put in that situation, then all of a sudden that part of you, that's the Torah mitzvah, the Torah part, the Har Sinai part, the river part, the essence, is activated. And when that's activated, it doesn't care about anything else. And everything else is completely secondary to it. And so this is the important point, is that there's two different sides to Yiddishkeit. There's the derivatives, there's the offshoots of your soul, and then there's your soul itself. And mitzvahs correspond to the offshoots of your soul. And they have certain requirements and certain limitations. But the essence, that's limitless, without limitation, without any boundaries at all. And that's and learning Torah with Mesiras Nefesh, on whatever level it is for you, that's connecting to the essence itself. And so that's not a discussion between the Gra and the Baal Tanya. So whoever you heard that share from, I wish he made this point, because this is the most important point. This is the most important point. You have to put in the context of what Yiddishkeit is. It's these two things. And again, when people learn, even if you're learning or you're davening, if it's only within mitzvahs, it's without Torah mitzvahs, then it eventually falls apart. It doesn't have lasting power. What does that mean? So you have to be learning all day? No, it doesn't mean that. But it means a person has to be learning a little bit in the day, a little bit more in the middle at night, with some level of self-sacrifice. And when you do that, then you have a self-sustaining system, and you'll be fine. Doesn't mean that every day will be great, but it means you have everything you need. You have everything you need, and then you'll be able to be okay. Should we get to what I wanted to talk about? Is that okay? Not much, 2 minutes. Maybe a little more than 2 minutes, but just very, very quick. So, in the parsha, one of the stories in the parsha, this is where the Chumash sort of takes a turn, where Klal Yisrael now turns towards Eretz Yisrael. We're beginning to travel towards Eretz Yisrael, and there's a lot of stories now. Not mostly, but a lot of negative stuff, like, all of a sudden when they're going towards Eretz Yisrael, then all the inyanim come out. Things that until now have sort of been dormant. So one of the things that comes out is the Jewish people's, what's the word? It's a struggle. They had a difficult time wrapping their heads and wrapping their souls around the man. So they begin to complain. We don't need money. We want real food, human food, bread, meat, and so on. And the pasuk has a whole thing talking about how amazing the man is. The man was mamash amazing. The Jewish people didn't appreciate it. So 2 minutes about the man. There's the Rishonim bring down from Rav Sajjagain the following halacha. It's a fascinating thing. Rav Sajjagain said, let's say, the Gemara talks about, let's say, a guy that wakes up on a desert island or something, doesn't know what day it is. So how does he calculate Shabbos? So Rav Sajjagain talks about another scenario. Let's say you have a whole kehila that they know when Shabbos is, but they lost track of the parashas. They don't know what parasha it is. So such a thing. So what should they lane? So it's Shabbos. You have to lane on Shabbos. But what are we laying? We don't know what parsha it is. So the Rishonim bring down from Rav Sajjagain, one of the great Goinim, that he said, if you're not sure what parsha it is, read the parsha of the man. That's read the parsha that you're laying. So now, on a simple level, why is that? Okay, so there's a connection between man and Shabbos, right? Because the parsha of the man in Parshas B'Shalach, Hashem says, I'm going to give you man, and then the next part is the Jewish people woke up on Friday with 2 portions of man, and they came to Moshe Rabbeinu like, what's going on? And Moshe said, Shabbos, because Shabbos is not going to be man, and so now you're getting 2 portions of man. Why are you not going to get man on Shabbos? Because you can't go out and carry on Shabbos. So let's start Shabbos. Okay. The problem is that there's many parshas about Shabbos. So that's how you're going to talk about Shabbos. If Rav Sajjagain said that you don't know what parsha it is, so read a parsha of Chumash that's about Shabbos. I get it, but why the man? So it must be that the man is not just a parsha that has to do with Shabbos. It must be that the man itself is like the essence of Shabbos. Like Shabbos is the man. That's why we celebrate Shabbos, Shtei Alechem, right? With 2 Lechem Mishnah, is because of the man. So there's got to be a deeper connection. So what is that? I'll share with you something the Lubavitch Rebbe said once. He said like this, there's a big difference between human food, the food that we eat, sushi included, and the man. What's the difference? So everything, all food, whatever you eat, it starts off as its own thing. It's a piece of fish, it's a piece of meat, it's a piece of bread, it's a soda, whatever it is. And then you consume it, and then it changes into something else. It becomes you. Okay, we understand that certainly now that it becomes you, so it can have an effect on you. So if obviously what's being turned into you is something that's good, so it'll make you feel, it'll make you healthier. If what's being turned into you is something that's not so good, so it'll have a negative effect on you. But ultimately, it's no longer a piece of fish, it's now a piece of you. That's what it is. The man is not like that. The man was not like that. The man came from, on a deeper level, human food is not just, that's true with all things. Everything starts in heaven, everything starts in the spiritual plane, and it moves its way down the ladder until eventually it becomes a table, and it becomes a chair, and it becomes a phone, it becomes something physical. So everything is moving, everything is changing as it goes down. So things go down from a high, spiritually speaking, it moves from God's domain to our domain, and as it moves down the ladder, it changes, it takes a different form, it becomes more earthly, it becomes more human. And food represents that, where you literally have something that is what it is, but as it moves into a different territory, into your gut, it becomes something different. Man is not like that. Man comes from heaven like everything else does, but it came down here and it stays the same. Not only did man stay the same as it moves from heaven to earth, even when you consumed it, it stayed the same. You ingested man, it didn't become a part of you like that. It still remained spiritual. Somehow, in some mysterious way, despite the fact that you were physical, this spiritual reality of man was able to sustain you. But the proof is that it didn't become a part of you is that they didn't have to go to the bathroom. It didn't produce, it didn't become a part of them. It somehow sustained them. And by the way, not only is that true physically, according to Chazal, this is true spiritually as well. The nature of man is that it was a level of holiness, it was a level of Kedusha, it was a level of Hashem's presence that always remained in its purity, it always kept its identity no matter where it went, and even if it didn't change the person. So, Mashal, in this week's parasha talks about how with the man, some people got it by their door, some people had to go out, some people had to go really far out. If you're a tzaddik, it came to you right away. If you're not such a tzaddik, you had to go out a few steps. If you're mamash Rosh, you go all the way out. So there were Rishayim eating man. Rishayim eating man. If the man is mamash spiritual, and it's becoming a part of them, then you'd think they'd stop being Rishayim. The answer is, the nature of man is, it is what it is. And it's able to exist in its pristine, holy, spiritual place, even when it's surrounded by things that are the opposite of it. Even in the gut of a Rasha, it's still able to be man. And it doesn't have to, it doesn't need its environment to change to become it, and it doesn't have to change to be part of its environment. It's okay to have this contradiction. It could be completely surrounded by the belly of a Rasha, and it's a shtik piece of man. It could be part of a physical world, and it's still a part of the heavens. It doesn't mind that contradiction. Not only is this by man, this is the essence of Shabbos. The essence of Shabbos is it's what Shabbos? Shabbos is not just a day of the week. Shabbos is a day where the Ribono Shel Olam brings the higher world into the lower world without changing the lower world into the higher world. And without changing the higher world into the lower world, you understand? On Shabbos, it's me'en olam haba. Shabbos is a taste of the next world. But you're not in the next world. It's still down here. Shabbos is the man. What the man was in physical form, Shabbos is in time. Shabbos means the Ribono Shel Olam taking the higher part of who you are and presenting it to you and putting it inside of you even before you've changed into that higher part. That's what Shabbos is. Therefore, says Rav Saadia Gaon, if you're not sure what parsha it is, lay in the parsha of the man. Because every single parsha is somehow connected to Shabbos, if we're laying on a Shabbos, but you want to know one parsha that's mamish Shabbos itself, that's the man. Because that's exactly what it is. And so that's, as we prepare for Shabbos, I think that's the most important thing, is that like I've mentioned this to the Chaver in Shul many times, is that Shabbos is not a time where you don't earn Shabbos. You don't have to deserve Shabbos. You have to receive Shabbos. Just like you don't have to earn the mun, you don't have to deserve the mun. You have to receive the mun. And that's a big difference. Because when you go into Shabbos with the mentality of this is something that I have to make and I have to earn it, then you're already looking at Shabbos as something that has to become a part of you, or you have to become a part of it. It's like regular food that has to change form as it makes it into your territory. So either it's going lower or you're going higher, but it's not able to deal with contradictions like that. Shabbos is not like that. Shabbos comes into your life regardless of your matziv. If you allow it to come in, Shabbos will come into your life and be Shabbos, even if your Friday and your Sunday were not Shabbosdik. But if that moment you're able to receive Shabbos, then Shabbos doesn't mind. This is why Chazal say, just to end off, Chazal say that when Adam and Chava, after Hashem confronted Cain after he killed Hevel, so we know that Hashem planned on killing Cain, but Cain did a little tshuva, and so Hashem said, fine, you're going to go into exile instead. So Adam says in Chazal the Medrash that Adam met his son, and he asked me, he said, Ma nas b'dincha, what was the psak, what did Hashem say? So Chazal said that Cain said, Asisi tshuva, I did some tshuva, and it's pasharti, and me and the Rabban Shul made a pshara. We made a compromise, we compromised. We settled on Golas. So Chazal say he began to smack himself. He said, "Whoa, that's how great tshuva is. If I only knew." And he began to say a pasuk in Tehillim, Mizmar Shir L'Yom HaShabbos. So what does Shabbos have to do with this whole conversation? What does Cain mean? I did tshuva and we made a compromise. The answer is what Cain was revealing to Adam is that it's not all or nothing. There's such a musik as man. There's a musik of Shabbos, which is that you could be in a very not Shabbos-dik matziv, but Shabbos is able to come into your life and still be Shabbos, without it having to morph into you or you into it. It's okay it could exist in that conflicted, contradictory state. It's okay, just like Cain did with the Rabbanu Shalom. So did I have a kapar? Did I not have a kapar? Is my avera still existing or not? Okay, a compromise. What is a compromise? A compromise means a little bit of you, a little bit of that, and we're okay to deal with that contradiction. So Adam says that's the koach of tshuva, mizmor shir l'yom HaShabbos. That's what Shabbos says. Hashem should help us to accept Shabbos, to receive Shabbos, and you do that. So I'll tell you a quick ma'aseh. Today's the yard site of the Beis Aaron of Karlin, Varna God of Karlin. So he was a big davener. His only the Karlin, stolen Karlin. They screamed davenings from the Beis Aaron. So the ma'aseh goes that there was the Karliner was once traveling to a particular town, and his way was whenever you go to a particular town, you visit the Rav of the town to give shalom. It wasn't a Chassidish place, not misnagdish, but it wasn't a Chassidish place. But he goes to this town and he goes to give shalom to the Rav. He goes to the house, knocks on the door. The Rebbetzin opens the door. He says, "Is the Rav home?" The Rav's not home. Okay, so I have to go anyway. Let him know that I stopped by to give shalom. Fine. So a few hours later, the Rav comes home and his wife says to him, earlier you missed. There's a Chassidish Rebbe that came to give shalom. So he said, "Who was he?" So she said, his name is Aaron of Karlin. Aaron of Karlin. I have to go meet him. So he quickly gets into his wagon, whoever it is, and somehow tracks him down and goes to the Karliner to get a bracha. Okay, very good. So what's the ma'aseh? So his Talmid and the Rav's Gabon, whatever it is, asking, why is the Rav going crazy to meet the Karliner? So he said, this is the ma'aseh. Last year, he said, if you remember, I got very sick. He said, yeah. So the Rav said that he was so sick, he was actually in a coma for a few days, and eventually he woke up. But he said, this is what happened when I was on there. I was mamash l'olam amis. I was in Bezdin Shalmala, and I was standing there, and they were going through my records, and they asked me, you knew Rabbi, whatever, you know how to learn? So he said, yeah. They looked at the records, okay, Taki knows how to learn. And he asked, do you know how to daven? He said, yeah, I know how to daven. They looked at the records and said, that's called davening. You think you know how to daven? You know how to daven. So then I asked them, so I thought I know how to daven. I mean, I say davening 3 times a day, I know how to daven. Could you show me what davening is like then? So they said, you want to see davening? We'll show you davening. So they brought me, he said, to a base medrash up there. And even before he opened the door, the sounds, mamish, was like, the whole place was shaking from the energy. and they open the door, and he sees in there mamish all chassidim and tzaddikim, the mamish like rolling on the floors and davening and the bechiyas and just everything's intense. And then there's the Baal Tefillah, and the Baal Tefillah standing by the Amid, and his even more intense than everyone else and shining. And they said, "This is davening." And so he said, "So, if you don't mind me asking, who's the Baal Tefillah? Like, who is this?" And they said, "This is Aaron HaGadol of Karlin. This is the Karliner." And with that, he woke up and he felt better. And he said, "Ever since then, I wanted to meet the Karliner." And so now that he came to my house to give shalom, I have to go meet him to see if it lines up, if he's the Taka who I saw. And when I saw him, it's Taka the same person. So this story, went viral, whatever it is, And eventually the Karliner heard the Maisa, and the Karliner said, "Look at this. That Rav, he's mamish like a carrot. Mamish like a carrot." So what do you mean like a carrot? So you take a carrot, and you could chop it up, you could dice it, you could put it in soup. Aber a carrot bleibt a carrot. He said, "Look at this." He was shown in Shemaim what davening is like. And he was shown exactly who the Baal Tefillah is. And he's still a misnagid. He's still a litvak. He still doesn't daven by us, Such a thing. So a carrot bleibt a carrot. That's what he said. So it's a horrible story, right? But why am I saying that, right? Okay, Fart, he wasn't the Karliner Chassid. He didn't become a Karliner Chassid. But the Maisa, he saw a Karliner Chassid. He saw Rav Aaron Karlin. He knows what davening is. That's a sisi chuvnas b'sharti. That's a madrega already. Even if a person's not the Karliner, but at least to be able to say that you saw the Karliner once, be able to say that you saw davening. It's already for the madrega. That's Shabbos. Again, it's the same Indian where Shabbos doesn't require it. It's okay. Shabbos is okay with sitting in an environment that's not Shabbos. It's okay. And that's exactly the Indian. So even if you're a carrot and a carrot bleibt a carrot, it's okay. Sometimes a carrot in a soup is part of chicken soup too. Okay, so it's also pretty good. All right, have an amazing Shabbos.